In this module, we'll cover about 200 Salesforce developer interview questions, and that includes areas of administration, lightning, integration, developer experience, security, development, design, SQL, and reporting. This section of the interview question focuses on Salesforce administration. What is Salesforce? Salesforce is considered to be the most effective customer relationship management product, CRM, that is delivered to a subscriber as a cost-effective software as a service, SaaS. What does a custom object permit the user to do? Once the custom object is defined, the subscriber could perform the following tasks: create custom fields, relate the custom object to other records, track events and tasks, build page layouts, create a custom tab for the custom object, analyze custom object data, create dashboards and reports, and share custom tabs, custom apps, custom objects, and various other related components. What is the difference between Force.com and Salesforce.com? Force.com is a platform as a service, while Salesforce.com is a software as a service. Is there a limit for data.com records? Salesforce users can see their limit form set up easily by simply clicking data.com administration/users. What is a page layout and record types in Salesforce? Page layout is used to organize user interface pages for the users based on their user profile. Record types allow you to associate different business processes to define different sets of pick list values based on their user profile. What are organization-wide defaults? OWDs, organization-wide defaults, are the baseline security for Salesforce instance. Organization-wide defaults are used to restrict access. What is role hierarchy? Similar to an org chart, a role hierarchy represents the level of data access that a user or group of users need. Name two of the different data management tools in Salesforce: Data Import Wizard, Data Loader. What is Data Import Wizard? Using Data Import Wizard, we can load up to 50,000 records at a time. What is Data Loader? Data Loader is a tool or application used for Salesforce to import and export bulk data. What is the difference between public, private cloud, and hybrid cloud? Public cloud can be available to people across the world. In this public cloud, the user has no control over the resources. Private cloud can be accessed only within the limited premises, that is, cloud service providers, cloud infrastructure to a particular organization or business specifically. A hybrid cloud is the combination of a number of clouds of any type, but the cloud has the ability to allow data and or applications to be moved from one cloud to another cloud. How do we freeze users in Salesforce? Set up, administer, manage users, and then click to freeze. What is meant by company profile? In Salesforce, company profile consists of information about language, locale, time zone, number of licenses, storage, available space, physical year, addresses, and currencies. What's the number of Salesforce editions released per year? That is spring, summer, and winter. What are the different Salesforce editions? Salesforce.com provides different types of editions, including group, professional, enterprise, and unlimited. What is export and export all in Data Loader? Export button is used to export all records of a particular object in the system to a CSV. excluding records for present in recycle bin, whereas in the case of export all button, all records, including records present in the recycle bin for that particular objects, are exported to a CSV file. What is a formula field in Salesforce? Formula field is a read-only field that derives its values for the formula expression that we define. What are cross-object formula field? Cross-object formula field displays one object record in other related object by referencing merge fields on those objects. What are the different types of email templates that can be created in Salesforce? Text, HTML with letterhead, custom HTML, and Visual Force. What is MVC architecture? What is model, view, controller architecture? That's when a custom object is created in Salesforce and a Visual Force is created to display the details of the record of the custom object using controller. And so in this scenario, we observe the three parts: object creation, Visual Force page, controller. The object creation part is the model, the Visual Force page is the view, and the controller part is the controller. What are governor limits in Salesforce? In Salesforce, it is the governor limits which controls how much data or how many reports you can store in the shared database. What are some of the governor limits? Those include per transaction epochs limits, Force.com platform epochs limits, static epochs limits, size-specific epochs limits, miscellaneous epochs limits, email limits, push notification limits. How to set the login hours and login IP ranges for the users in Salesforce. For login hours, we'll go to the Setup, Administration, Manage Users, and Profiles. For the login IP, similarly, we'll go to the Setup, Administration Setup, Manage Users, and Profiles. Why do we use tabs in Salesforce? Mention the types of tabs. In Salesforce, a list of tabs is placed in the tab menu, and tabs are used to access and object data. The three main types of tabs are Custom Tab, Visual Force Tab, and Web Tab. What are the available portals in Salesforce? Number one, Customer Portal, which enables us to utilize the capabilities of the web as the ideal channel to deliver superior self-service. Partner Portal, which allows partner users to log into Salesforce via a separate website that is used for our non-partner users. Self-Service Portal, which is customers will be able to search for details about the organization using this portal. Explain the term data skew in Salesforce. Data skew is a condition which we will encounter when working with a big client with over 10,000 records. When one single user, for example, owns many records, we call that condition ownership data skew. Why are Visual Force pages served from a different domain? Visual Force pages are served from a different domain to improve security standards and block cross-site scripting. What is Chatter in Salesforce? Chatter is a Salesforce real-time collaboration application that lets users work together, talk to each other, and share information. In this section, we will discuss Lightning in Salesforce. What is Salesforce Lightning? The Lightning experience is the name for all the new Salesforce desktop app with new features, built with a modern user interface and optimized for speed. Lightning is the collection of tools and technologies behind a significant upgrade to the Salesforce platform, which includes experience, Lightning component framework, visual building tools, Lightning Exchange, and Lightning design system. What are the tools included in Lightning? Number one, Lightning component framework. which is components and extensions that allow us to build reusable components, customize the Salesforce mobile app, and build standalone apps. Number 2, Lightning App Builder, a new user interface tool that lets us build apps lightning fast using components provided by Salesforce and platform developers. Number 3, Lightning Connect, which is an integration tool that makes it easier for our Force.com app to consume data from any external source that conforms to the OData spec. Number 4, Lightning Process Builder, a user interface tool for visualizing and creating automated business processes. And number 5, Lightning Schema Builder, a user interface tool for viewing and creating objects, fields, and relationships. What is Aura and why do I see Aura namespace in the code? Aura is the open source technology that powers Lightning components. The Aura namespace contains all of the basic building blocks for defining components and applications. What is an Aura definition bundle? An Aura definition bundle component is a folder that contains definition files. Each file represents a resource in a bundle, such as a markup application, code files, events, documentation, and interfaces. And as we can see, the definitions of some of those suffixes are on the table below. What is the Aura-enabled annotation used for? And how would you call the Epics class from a Lightning component? The Aura-enabled annotation enables Lightning components to access Epics methods and properties. The Aura-enabled annotation is overloaded and is used for 2 separate and distinct purposes. Use Aura-enabled on Epics class static methods to make them accessible as remote controller actions in our Lightning components, and use Aura-enabled on Epics instance methods and properties to make them serializable when an instance of the class is returned as the data from a server-side action. What is the functionality of Aura method tag in Salesforce Lightning? We can use the Aura method to define a method as part of a component's API. This enables us to directly call a method in a component client-side controller instead of firing and handling a component event. How can we conditionally display content in Lightning component? We can use the Aura if to conditionally display content in Lightning component. What is the difference between Visual Force components and Lightning components? Visual Force components are page-centric, and most of the work is done on the server. Lightning is designed from the component up rather than having the concept of a page as its fundamental unit. Lightning components are client-side centric, which makes them more dynamic and more user-friendly. What are the different Lightning component bundles? Component, which is the user interface for Lightning component. Controller contains the client-side controller methods to handle events in the component. Helper, JavaScript, functions that can be called from any JavaScript code in a components bundle. Style, which contains styles for the component. Document, a description sample code. Design, which is a file required for component use in Lightning App Builder. SFG, custom icon resource for components used in the Lightning App Builder or Community Builder. Renderer, which is the client-side renderer to override default rendering for a component. What are the type of events in Salesforce Lightning component? There are 3: application event, component event, and system event. What is the use of implements in Lightning component? Implements is used to refer to platform interfaces, which enables a component to be used in different contexts or to grant access to extra context data. A component can implement more than one interface. Which interface is implemented so that a Lightning component can be used as a tab? We need to implement the Force app hostable. Which interface is implemented so that a Lightning component can be used as a quick action? We need to implement the Force Lightning Quick Action. Which interface is implemented so a Lightning component can be used in Community Builder? We need to implement the Force Community available for all page types. How can we use Lightning components with the Salesforce mobile app? We can create a custom Lightning tab that points to our component and include the tab in our Salesforce mobile navigation. How can we use a Lightning component in Visualforce page? A Lightning component can be embedded in any web page using a very powerful and flexible feature, Lightning Out. When used with Visualforce, some complexity becomes simpler. Lightning component can be added to a Visualforce page in 3 steps. Number 1, we have to first add the Lightning component for Visualforce JavaScript library to our targeted Visualforce page using the tag. Number 2, we have to create and refer a Lightning app which is used to the component dependencies. 3, we need to write a JavaScript function which will finally create the component on the page using the lightning.create component. Can we integrate Lightning components with another framework like Angular? Yes, we can integrate Lightning with any third-party framework. Can we include external JavaScript, CSS libraries like jQuery, Bootstrap in components? Yes, we can use multiple libraries in our Lightning component like jQuery, Bootstrap, custom CSS, and custom JavaScript libraries using static resource. How can we display loading spinner in Lightning component? Spinners are CSS loading indicators that should be shown when retrieving data or performing slow computations. Lightning spinner displays an animated spinner image to indicate that a request is loading. Aura waiting and Aura done waiting can be used for controlling the loading spinner. What is the use of Force has record ID interface and how to get the current record ID in Lightning component? Add the Force has record ID interface to a Lightning component to enable the component to be assigned in the ID of the current record. The current record ID is useful in the component is used on a Lightning record page as an object-specific custom action or action override in Lightning Experience or the Salesforce app and so on. What is a flexi page in Lightning? Flexi page represents the metadata associated with a Lightning page. A Lightning page represents a customizable screen made up of regions containing Lightning components. How can we deploy Lightning components? Lightning components can be deployed similar to any other component using ChangeSet, Ant Migration Tool, Eclipse, or any other migration tool. What is Lightning Data Service? We could use Lightning Data Service to load, create, edit, or delete a record in our component without requiring Epic's code. Lightning Data Service handles sharing rules and field level security for us. What is Locker Service in Salesforce Lightning? Locker Service is a powerful security architecture for Lightning components. Locker Service enhances security by isolating Lightning components that belong to one namespace from components in a different namespace. What are value providers in Salesforce Lightning? Value providers in Lightning component encapsulate related value together and use to access data. In Salesforce Lightning, we have 2 value providers for a component and are V for view and C for controller. V is a component attribute set which helps to access component attribute values in markup. C is a component controller which helps us to link with event handlers and actions for the component. What are the list of global value providers in Lightning? Those include Global ID, Browser, Label, Locale, and Resource. In this section, we'll be discussing the developer experience in Salesforce. Describe the Salesforce developer experience. Salesforce DX provides development teams with an integrated end-to-end lifecycle for high-performance agile development, designed to be open and flexible so we can build together with tools that we love. Furthermore, with Salesforce DX, source of truth is always version control, VCS, or source code management, SCM. Developers can use any tools like Git or SVN. What is Salesforce CLI? We speed up the development across the entire Customer 360 platform with the use of the Salesforce Command Line Interface, CLI. Built around open APIs, the Salesforce Command Line Interface, CLI, can easily integrate into our existing developer workflow. What are Scratch orgs? We can emulate a Salesforce org with different features and preferences within a new type of environment, the Scratch org. A source-driven, fully configurable and disposable environment that could be used for development and automated testing. Define reimagined packaging in Salesforce DX. With the new managed packaging, customers and partners can organize their metadata and distribute apps while adopting a source-driven, CLI-centric approach to automate and manage the end-to-end app lifecycle. What are some of the Salesforce DX most useful commands? Below is a list. In this section, we're going to discuss integration in relationship to Salesforce. What is integration? Integration is a process of connecting two applications. A typical enterprise uses many applications, many or most of which are not designed to work with one another out of the box. Integrating separate but related apps helps organizations achieve greater levels of operational consistency, efficiency, and quality. How many types of APIs are available in Salesforce? Some of the APIs include REST, SOAP, bulk, streaming, metadata, chatter REST, user interface, analytics REST, Epics REST, Epic SOAP, and tooling. What are possible ways to integrate with Salesforce, Force.com? There's the user interface integration, combining the user interfaces of two or more apps to create composite apps with little or no rework on the user interface of each individual app. Secondly, business logic integration, which uses Epic's web services for inbound and Epic's callouts for outbound. Third, data integration, which uses SOAP APIs and REST APIs. What is a web service? A web service is a functionality or code which helps us to do integration. Web services are open standard, such as XML, SOAP, HTTP-based web applications that interact with other web applications for the purpose of exchanging data. What is SOAP? A protocol that defines a uniform way of passing XML encoded data. SOAP stands for Simple Object Access Protocol. When do we use REST API? REST API provides a powerful, convenient, and simple REST-based web service interface for interacting with Salesforce. Its advantages include ease of integration and development. When would you use the SOAP API? SOAP API provides a powerful, convenient, and simple SOAP-based web service interface for interacting with Salesforce. You can use SOAP API to create, retrieve, update, or delete records. When would you utilize the Chatter REST API? We use the Chatter REST API to display chatter feeds, users, groups, and followers, especially in mobile applications. When would you utilize the Streaming API? We use the Streaming API to receive near real-time streams of data that are based on changes in Salesforce records or custom payloads. When would you utilize the Tooling API? We use the tooling API to integrate Salesforce metadata with other systems. Metadata types are exposed as objects, so you can access one component of a complex type. What are call-in and call-out? Call-in is used to exposing our web services to another system. Call-out enables us to tightly integrate our epics with an external service by making a call to an external web service or sending an HTTP request from epics code and then receiving the response. What is a WSDL? WSDL, Web Services Description Language, is an XML document that describes a web service. WSDL is derived from Microsoft's Simple Object Access Protocol, SOAP, and IBM's Network Accessible Service Specification Language, NASL. What are the steps to generate the WSDL file? We do that by going to the Setup, Develop, Epics class. Then click on the Epics class, click on Generate WSDL button, generate WSDL code from the class, and then save the WSDL file in our system. What are the steps to consume external WSDL file? In the application from Setup, we enter into the Epics class, click on Generate from WSDL, click Browse to navigate to a WSDL, click Parse WSDL, modify the class name as desired, and then click Generate Epics. What is remote site settings? Remote site settings is used to authorize the endpoint and allow us to integrate end user. How many ways can we parse XML? There are two ways of XML parsing, which is XML streams and XML DOM. How can we read the root element in XML DOM? We use the command getRootElement. How can we read the child element in XML DOM? getChildElement. How can we read the text between tags? getText. How do SOAP and REST communicate? SOAP communicates primarily through WSDL file. REST communicates through HTTP protocol. What methods are available in REST? HTTP GET, HTTP POST, HTTP DELETE, and HTTP PUT. What is JSON? JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. It is lightweight than XML. When exchanging data between a browser and a server, the data can only be text. In this section, we will be discussing Salesforce interview questions regarding security. What are some of the Salesforce user access terms? Number one, role and role hierarchy. Salesforce uses role hierarchy to automatically grant access to users by default. Number two, sharing rules. They represent the permissions and exceptions to our organization. By using sharing rules, we can grant access to edit, read, write permissions to users. There's two types of sharing rules, which include manual sharing. And manual sharing is the process of sharing records manually, and automatic sharing. Number three, permission sets. In this permission sets, we define the access level of the user. Number four, profiles. In object-level security, profiles are assigned to the user by system administrator. What is a profile? Each user has a single profile that controls which data and features that user has access to. What are standard profiles? Examples are read-only, standard user, marketing user, contract manager, system administrator. What are the different levels of data access in Salesforce? They are, number one, organization level security. Number two, object level security. Number three, field level security. Number four, record level security. And we can manage record level access in 4 ways, which include organization-wide defaults, role hierarchies, sharing rules, manual sharing. What are organization-wide defaults? Organization-wide defaults, OWD, in Salesforce is the baseline level of access that the most restricted users should have. What is a record owner? The user or queue who controls and have the right to access a record. What is a permission set? A permission set is a collection of settings and permissions that gives users access to various tools and functions. The settings and permission sets are also found in profiles, but permission sets extend users' functional access without changing their profiles. What is view all and modify all permissions? View all and modify all permissions are usually given to system administrators. When we grant view all or modify all for an object on a profile or permission set, we grant any associated user access to all records of that object, regardless of the sharing and security settings. What is the procedure to get the security token in Salesforce? We click on our Name tab, then click on the Personal, and we will find the Reset My Security Token option. If we want to share records based on conditions like share records to a group of users whose state criteria is New York, what steps do we follow? We start at the Setup, then Security Controls, Sharing Settings, and then Edit. What are the steps to look at the user license information in Salesforce org? We start at the Salesforce org, Setup, Administer, Company Profile, and then the company information. Explain the difference between role and profile. In Salesforce, role is meant to increase the data visibility to a particular user. It can be done through sharing rules or by building a role hierarchy. Unlike the role, profile is mandatory for all and it stays at the object level. It is treated as a building pillar of our organization. What is meant by transfer record in profile? Transfer record is a type of function used to grant permission. If a user has the permission to share a record with others, then they can share the records that they have read-only access to. In this section, we will cover the reporting segments of Salesforce, such as reports and dashboards. Name some of the top frequently used Salesforce reports and dashboards. Number 1, Sales Rep Dashboard. Number 2, Sales Manager Dashboard. Number 3, Win-Loss Dashboard. Number 4, Lead Funnel Dashboard. Number 5, Sales Leaderboard. Number 6, the Forecast Dashboard. Number 7, the KPIs and Sales Activities Dashboard. And that's where the grouping is done based on columns and rows. Summary report, which gives us the detailed reports based on columns. Joint reports, which are capable of allowing 2 or more reports in one report. What are the default filters in Salesforce? How can we get rid of the date filter? They are date filters, and we can get rid of the date filter by selecting the all time in the range on the page. Explain the Salesforce dashboard. Salesforce dashboard is a visual representation of snapshots that are generated from Salesforce report data. Using Salesforce dashboard components, we can convert business requirements into graphical representation using Salesforce reports. What are the different dashboard components? That includes scatter chart, line chart, funnel chart, vertical bar chart, donut chart, horizontal bar chart, pie chart, gauge, metric, table, visual force pages. How does Salesforce track sales details? Salesforce gives the accurate results of following things such as number of customers served on a daily basis, regular sales numbers, complete reports from the sales manager, generate sales reports on a timely basis. It provides the details of repeat customer activity as well. What is conditional highlighting in Salesforce reports? Conditional highlighting is a powerful way to show values in report within given limits. Using conditional highlighting, we can specify colors for different ranges of values in reports. What is a bucket field? Which field type does bucketing field support? Bucketing lets you quickly categorize report records without having to create a formula or a custom field. It supports the field type of pick list, number, and text. In this section, we will review Salesforce interview questions pertaining to areas of design, querying, and relationships. What is the syntax of SQL statement? Select, and then the list of fields, from, and then the object name, where, and then the condition. What are the types of SQL statements in Salesforce? Salesforce Object Query Language is used to query the records from the database.com based on the requirements. There are two types of SQL statements, static and dynamic. The static SQL statement is written in an array. These statements are similar to inc. Dynamic SQL is used to refer to the creation of a SQL string at runtime with Epic's code. It enables you to create a more flexible application. How can we perform DML partially? If we want partially to happen, we use the database.insert and pass the parameters list, false. What is fiscal year in Salesforce? The fiscal year is known as the starting and ending date of a company's financial year. We have two types of financial years in Salesforce, which are standard fiscal year and custom fiscal year. What is a multi-tenant architecture in Salesforce? It is the cloud's fundamental technology to share IT resources securely and cost-effectively. What is the difference between insert and database.insert? Using the insert method, we can insert the records, but if any error occurs in any record system, we'll throw an error insertion fail and none of the records are inserted. If we want to execute partially success of bulk insert operation, we use the database.insert. Can we create a roll-up summary field on the master object? Yes, we can create a roll-up summary field on the master object. List some examples of custom fields. There are many custom fields available, such as pick list, currency, date, text, pick list multi-select, email, percent, number, phone, text area, lookup, relationship, geolocation, checkbox, master detail relationship. What are the different ways to store various types of records in Salesforce? There are multiple ways in Salesforce to store various types of records, such as images, files, and documents. They include attachments, Google Drive, Chatter files, and libraries. What is the main difference between data table and page block table tags? Page block, it defines inside the page block station or page block. To design the visual pages, it uses style sheets. The required attribute is value, and automatically it will display column headers. Data table, no need to mention inside the page block station or page block. No required value. The data will be displayed using custom style sheets, and we need to specify column headers explicitly. Is roll-up summary field possible in master detail relationship? Yes, it is possible in a master detail relationship. If we delete parent records in a master detail relationship, what happens to the child? The child record also gets deleted. How many relationships do we have in Salesforce? We have three main types of relationships, which are master detail relationship, lookup relationship, external lookup. What is the master detail relationship? Master detail relationship is the same as the relationship between a parent and child. In this aspect, the master is treated as a parent and the detail as the child. The master object takes control of the behavior of the detail object. What is a lookup relationship? It's a relationship between two objects. A lookup relationship connects two objects so that we can look up from related items to other items. What is an external lookup? An external lookup relationship is used to connect the child object to the parent object. The child object may be either custom, standard, or an external object. It uses to identify the correct map of the child object with a parent external object. The external lookup relationship values fields are matched against the external ID's values. What is Salesforce standard fields? Salesforce standard fields are fields such as owner, name, last modified by, created by. What is a self relationship? It is a personal lookup to the same object. The self relationship creates a tree diagram of the object. What are the main things needed to consider in the master detail relationship? There will be record level access is determined by the parent, mandatory on the child for reference of the parent, and cascade delete. What does the undelete option do? It will restore the record with the data in the object. If we reparent in the object, will the parent update? Yes, the parent will update the object. What are the default indexed fields in Salesforce? We have some fields which are indexed by default in Salesforce, including name, ID, owner fields, master detail relationship fields, lookup fields, last modified dates, and audit dates. What is the junction object and what is it used for? Junction objects are mainly used to create a many-to-many relationship in Salesforce. What is the difference between SQL and SOSL in Salesforce? Salesforce Object Query Language. We can search only one object at a time. We can query on all fields of any data type. We can use SQL in the triggers and the classes. We can perform DML operation on SQL query results. While with the Salesforce Object Search Language, we can search only one object at one time, can query fields whose data type is text, phone, and email, cannot use triggers, but can in classes. We cannot perform DML operations on search results. Which field cannot be added to a custom index? We cannot add formula fields to the custom index in Salesforce. Since there is only two master detail relationships per object, how many custom levels can it have? Salesforce allows 3 custom levels per object. So if we were to have the company, we could have a worker and then a sub-workers. In this section, we're going to cover Salesforce development, which includes areas such as epics development, triggers, and workflows. Triggers and workflows. When we speak about a workflow, we're speaking about an automated process that is fired, action-based, evaluates a criteria, and has a rule criteria. A trigger is a piece of code that executes before or after a record is inserted or updated. What is a workflow? Workflow is an excellent way to automate specific business processes in Salesforce. To do this, we're required to define certain rules and regulations to automate tasks such as sending an email, updating a field, or creating a task. What are assignment rules? Assignment rules automatically assign incoming leads and cases to specific agents so that the right people work on the right leads and cases. What are queues? Queues in Salesforce allow the group of users to manage a shared workload more efficiently. It prioritizes our support team's workload by creating lists from which specific agents can jump in to solve certain types of cases. What are auto-response rules? Auto-response rules automatically send personalized email templates for new cases and new leads from our website. What are escalation rules? Escalation rules automatically escalate cases to the right people when the cases aren't solved by a certain time. What is an approval process? An approval process is used in the business process to approve or reject the record. It involves approval or rejection of records where one person creates the record and submits that record for approval. What is a trigger? An epics trigger enables us to perform custom actions before or after events to record in Salesforce, such as insertions, updates, or deletions. Just like database systems support triggers, epics provides trigger support for managing records. What is the syntax for a trigger? Trigger, then the trigger name, and then the object name, and then trigger event, and then between braces, the code block. What are the various events in which a trigger can be fired? A trigger is a set of statements which can be executed on the following events, including before insert, before update, before delete, after insert, after update, after delete, and then after undelete. What are the considerations while implementing a trigger? Consider the following before implementing a trigger. Upsert trigger fires on 4 different events: before, insert and update, after, insert or update. Merge trigger are fired on both events on delete. Field history is updated after the trigger has successfully finished processing data. Any callout should be asynchronous so that the trigger does not have to wait for the response. A trigger cannot have a static keyword in its code. If a trigger completes successfully, the changes are committed to the database, and if it fails, the transactions are rolled back. What are context variables and triggers? All triggers define implicit variables that allow developers to access runtime context. These variables are contained in the syntax.trigger class. How is trigger.new different from trigger.newMap? Trigger.new variable returns the list of objects which has invoked the trigger, and trigger.newMap returns the map of IDs with the newly entered records. NewMap is only available in after insert, before and after the update, and after undelete. How is trigger.new different from trigger.old? Trigger.new variable returns the list of object which has invoked the trigger, and trigger.old returns of the list of the older versions of the records which have invoked the trigger. Trigger.old is only available in update and delete events. Define recursive trigger and how to avoid it. There is a possibility that the result of the trigger can end up calling the same trigger again and can run into a loop. This is known as a recursive trigger. What do you mean by bulkifying a trigger? A trigger should be able to handle single record and thousands of records. There are two important points for it: writing triggers that operate on collection of S objects, writing triggers that perform efficient SOQL and DML operations. If we will not follow above point, we may hit governor limits when records are created, updated, deleted in mass using data loader or other tools. What is a time trigger? Computer system executes one or more tasks according to the set of rules and scheduled tasks. What is meant by an object in Salesforce? Objects in Salesforce are used as database tables that are used to store information of an organization. We have two types of objects in Salesforce. They are standard object, custom object. What is meant by app in Salesforce? An app in Salesforce is a container that holds various things such as a logo, name, a set of required tabs. In Salesforce, we can customize apps to match our requirements, or we can build new applications by combining custom and standard tabs. What are the different types of apps that can be created in Salesforce? We can create two types of apps in Salesforce: custom app. This type of apps can be used in every business scenario. It is widely used in the market. And then a console app. This type of app can be used only in the client service business, where we focus on solving the client's issues. What is meant by epics transaction? An epics transaction represents a group of operations that are needed to be executed at once. It includes the data manipulation language and is responsible for querying records. What is meant with epics managed sharing? Epics managed sharing provides developers with the ability to support an application to share requirements. This type of sharing is available only with users to modify all data permissions. Only these users can add, change epics managed sharing. What is the usage of the epics program within Visualforce page? When you want to call epics class in Visualforce page, we have to declare in the following format: epics, page, controller, and assign that the class name. What is a sandbox in Salesforce? A sandbox is defined as a testing environment that is used to test the code or to conduct experiments in an isolated environment without harming the production environment. What is an audit trail? An audit trail in Salesforce is a unique feature that helps in tracking the changes that have been made in the organization by you and other administrators. When do we use a sandbox? A sandbox helps us when we want to test the newly developed application in Force.com or Visualforce page. The different types of sandboxes available to us are Developer, Developer Pro, Partial Copy, and Full. What can cause data loss in Salesforce? There are many things that can contribute to the data loss in Salesforce, which include migrating to number, percent, and money from other data types, when we change the date and time, migrating to multi-select pick list from any other type but except pick list, moving from checkbox, auto, number, multi-select pick list to any other type, and changing text area to phone, URL, email, or text. What are static resources? Static resources allow you to add the content that you want to reference on Visualforce page, which includes things such as images, JavaScript, archives, and CSS files. What is a visual force component? Visual force components are small reusable components of functionality such as widgets, user interface elements, and panels. We have two types of visual force components, which are standard and custom, and are used to define the user interface behavior. What is SOQL? SOQL, Salesforce Object Query Language, is a query language that allows you to construct simple but powerful query strings and to specify the criteria that should be used to select the data from the platform database. What are some bulkification best practices? We must avoid using index values like trigger.new. We need to use for each loop whether we have one record or many. We must not use SOQL, SOSL, DML inside for loop. We need to store data in collections so our code will work for single as well as multiple records. What is Epic's interface? Epic's interface is a collection of unimplemented methods. This will specify the signature of the method, types of inputs that we pass the method, specify what type is given as an output. Where can I use Epics? We can use Epics in the following ways: to create email service, create web services, perform complex validation over multiple objects, create complex business processes that are not supported by workflow, create custom transaction logic, attach custom logic to another operation. How does Epics work? All Epics programs run entirely on demand on Force.com platform. First, the platform application server compiles the code into an abstract set of instructions that can be understood by Epics runtime interpreter. Then compiled code is stored in metadata. What is Epics in Salesforce? Epics is a strongly typed object-oriented programming language. It allows the developer to execute flows and transaction control statements. Epics enables developers to add business logic to most system events like button clicks, related record updates, and visual force pages. What are the ways to call the Epics class? Below mentioned are the ways in Salesforce to call Epics class: from another class, from developer console, from JavaScript links, from homepage components, by using triggers, from visual force page. What is Epics email service? Email services are an automated process that uses Epics classes to process the contents, headers, attachments of inbound email. What is Epics scheduler? It will invoke the Epics class to run at a specified time. Anybody who wants to schedule their class, they have to implement the schedulable interface. What is map class in Epics Salesforce? Map class contains methods for the map collection type. A map is a collection of key value pairs where each unique key map to a single value. Map keys and values can be any data type, primitive types, collections, objects, user-defined types, and built-in Epics types. What is batch Epics in Salesforce? Batch Epics allows you to define a single job that can be broken up into manageable chunks, whereas every chunk can be processed separately. In the batch Epics, it will fetch all the records in which you want to perform the field update and divide them into a list of 200 records, and on every 200 records, operation is performed separately. Explain various methods of batch Epics class. The database batchable contains three methods that must be implemented: start method, execute method, and finish method. How would we invoke batch Epics job, or how to execute the batch Epics job programmatically? We can use database.executeBatch method to programmatically begin the batch job. And then the syntax would be public static ID, execute batch, calling the S object, and then class name. Explain JavaScript remoting for Apex controllers. Use JavaScript remoting in Visualforce to call methods in Apex controllers from JavaScript. JavaScript remoting has three parts: the remote method invocation that we add to Visualforce page written in JavaScript, the remote method definition, and the method definition is written in Apex. The response handles the callback function that we add or include in our Visualforce page written in JavaScript. How would you add JavaScript remoting to a Visualforce page? To use JavaScript remoting in a Visualforce page, add the request as a JavaScript invocation with the following form. What do we mean when we say declarative approach? It means working on a project without code. What do we mean by customization or non-declarative approach? We mean working on a project with code. Which operation would you use to compare the variable name in a query? The comparison operator. Which keyword would help us pass the collection to the query instead of passing one value? The in keyword. What are benefits of writing controllers? A couple of the benefits are we get the logic as well as the data. What is the difference between Epic's input text versus Epic's input field? Input field, copy the field from any object and display it on a Visualforce page like copy-paste works. Input text, it will help to create a field from scratch. That is new creation. What is future annotation? We use the future annotation to specify that the methods are executed asynchronously. Methods with future annotation must be static methods. Methods with future annotation can only return a void type. What is the App Exchange directory? It's a web directory where hundreds of apps are available to Salesforce customers to review, demo, comment upon, and/or install. How could we call JavaScript in Visualforce page? Add JavaScript file in static resource as shown below. What are the types of email templates that can be created in Salesforce? They include number 1, text template, number 2, HTML with letterhead, number 3, custom HTML, number 4, Visualforce email template. What are the effects of using the transient keyword? The transient keyword prevents the data from being saved into view state. This should be used for very temporary variables. What is metadata-driven development model? An app development model that allows apps to be defined as declarative blueprints with no code required. What is S-control? S-controls are the predominant Salesforce widgets that are completely based on JavaScript. These are hosted by Salesforce, but executed at the client side. S-controls are superseded by Visualforce. What is a wrapper class in Salesforce? A wrapper or container is a data structure, a class type, or an abstract data type that contains multiple collections of objects. It helps in displaying various objects in Visualforce page in a single table. What are forced platform sites? Public websites and applications that are directly integrated with your Salesforce organization without requiring users to log in with a username and password. What is a tab in Salesforce? A tab is a user interface to display custom object data and other embedded web content to a user. We have three types of tabs in Salesforce, which are custom tabs, visual force tabs, and web tabs. What are things that can be customized on page layouts? Page layouts allow you to personalize or customize the given page objects or records. It helps in customizing or designing the page according to your requirements. Page Layout Editor helps you in customizing the pages. Using this page, you can customize things like buttons, fields, custom links, and related lists.